Now, real people, real opinions. Nighttime talk with Niall Boylan.
Ireland's classic hits radio.
Us Irish, of course, like to think we are great storytellers. And there you go. See, I've just told you a story. We're good little yappers, aren't we? We like to think that we have the gift of the gab because we're Irish. But the fact is, many of us are actually terrible public speakers. We fumble. We say, we get nervous. We start to sweat profusely. Well, as is the case with everything these days, there is an expert at hand to help you. And Heidi Ellert McDermott is the founder of Speechy and the author of The Modern Couple's Guide to Wedding Speeches. It's a job for everybody in life, isn't there, really and truly? Heidi set up the company back in 2015 after one too many terrible weddings with woeful speeches, and since has worked with lots of people, including many celebrities, by the way. We'll find out who they are in a minute. There's a few kiss and tell stories coming, I can feel it. Anyway, and she joins me on the line to tell her story. Heidi, hi, how are you?
Very good. Yeah, great to speak to you. And yes, it is a very unusual job, I'll admit that. And but it definitely keeps me busy, and it seems a lot of people need help.
So here's the thing, right? I'm a good public speaker. I worked as a DJ in nightclubs. I've worked in radio for 30 years doing this. I rabbit on for 3 hours a night. I do 2 hours during the day at a podcast, no problem. I was asked to be a best man at a wedding going back about 10 years ago. And I was sweating profusely at the thoughts of having to do an after dinner speech. I just got so nervous. What's that about?
Well, it's just such a different beast. And as you say, we work with some celebrities and politicians and sort of high-powered chief execs and everyone.
Like who? Kiss and tell.
Oh, I'm not giving names, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, it's such an unusual type of speech where you've got to entertain people, you've got to tick the etiquette boxes, you're not allowed to offend people, and you've got to keep everyone smiling and happy. And it just puts everyone in a spin. It's something you don't have to do very often. And even if you are a natural funny guy, you've got the gift of the gab, it is in a more formal setting. You're speaking to people that you don't know, that you've never met. And so I think it is a big ask. And as you say, I went to quite a few weddings over a course of sort of a 5-year period. And I just saw how tough some people were finding it.
Okay.
And thought I could help them.
Okay, so as you're saying, you're talking to a different type of an audience. For example, we're talking here, and we're talking to probably, but thankfully I'm in a little room on my own. There's nobody else around, apart from my producer staring in the window at me. There's nobody else around. So for me, it's easy. I'm trapped in this little room, and I don't see anybody. But realistically, and I often say to people when they come in as guests and they're nervous, I said, don't worry, it's just about the size of a big stadium full of people listening to you. It's like singing. that usually puts them at ease. Anyway, so...
But you don't see them. Yeah, it's different. It feels more intimate, doesn't it? And
so here's the thing. When you're asked to do a wedding speech, is there a formal way of doing it? Is there kind of rules and regulations around a wedding speech? Like, let's say for the best man, for example, is there rules? You obviously have to introduce, ladies and gentlemen, bride and groom, ladies and gentlemen, the priest, give them all a mention, the hotel stuff. So is there rules around how you start it, how you finish it, what happens in the middle, telling a story? Is there kind of rules?
Wrong. Is especially sort of the groom who generally has the most wedding speech to-dos. And that's like diving into Google and looking up the etiquette guide. And by the end of it, you think you've got to thank about 50 people in a 10-minute speech. So I'd say don't get too panicked about the etiquette. And the reality is these days, it's just about common sense and being grateful. But I'd say definitely try to take the advice online with a pinch of salt in terms of, we wouldn't encourage thanking people that you've paid. Give them a good Google review. Instead, they'd appreciate that more. And use your word count to actually pay a tribute to the people who matter. Again, like with the groom, sometimes it just comes down to a couple of sentences saying how beautiful their partner is. And actually, what everyone wants in a speech is to get that sort of that feel-good factor out of it.
Yeah,
so
a bit of a smile. You don't.
Yeah. So you need the stories in it, and you need all that sort of sense of getting to know the couple more, finding out some more stuff. So, you've got to get rid of all the cliches and platitudes and really make everything more individual. The internet's got a lot to blame in sort of trying to get these same rehashed, cheesy wedding jokes out that you hear at every wedding.
Yeah, of course. The same cliche lines, yeah. I tell you, the worst wedding speech, many, many years ago, I was at a wedding, and the best man gets up to do his bit, and he does the bride and groom and all the rest and everything else. And then, in the middle of his speech, he said, "But I want to make an announcement." And he turns around to the first lady, or whatever she's called, the head bridesmaid, who was his fiance or his girlfriend, and he asked her to marry him. And I went, "Oh, time and place, man, time and place."
That is not the time to do it.
And I could see the bride. I could see the bride's face dropping. Everybody was looking, going, "You really pick your moments, pal." And then she got up and said, "Thank you."
Struggling for material.
And I said, "You've just taken the moment away." Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. So, oh my goodness, there's some classic awful mistakes I've seen as well. I saw a best man who went on for about 50 minutes.
Oh, God.
And he was being heckled. He continued on regardless. And what was most scary is he didn't have any notes. So we couldn't tell if he was coming to the end or not. But, when it comes to speeches, size matters. So,
okay. So is there, I know you provide a part of the service that you do. And you, by the way, at some point you were a TV producer, director, you're a writer for 15 years. You know your stuff when it comes to public speaking. But you provide a service where you do a template. So is the template, does that make it a lot easier? Is it like insert name here? Is it?
Well, we've tried to make it a bit better than that. I mean, it's not just me on the team. It's a team of sort of comedy writers. And so with every template, there's a choice of at least 3 sort of speeches people can pick. And then there's sort of a questionnaire as well that kind of helps people
to customize it a bit, for you, yeah.
Exactly, because I think that's one of the things we've learned over the years, especially with our bespoke service, is asking the right questions. Because if I asked a groom over the phone, why do you love your partner? It's just too big a question. They never have anything particularly interesting to say. But if I
suppose you mentioned, where'd you meet her? Funny moments that happened in your lives, the most exciting holiday you've had or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, or just like, what frustrates you about each other, or, do they have any unusual habits? And, you've really got to dig down to get the sense of, why they're the individual that you love and why you can't do without them. Really try to get away from all the sort of generic adjectives that so many brides could be described as, and really sort of honing in on why they're a cool individual and their partner loves them so much.
Okay, and do they get any training? Because it's all well and good you give them this wonderful speech, which I'm sure you provide an amazing speech for them, but they still have to stand up there and, and espouse that speech. So essentially, that nervousness or that way of speaking publicly and trying not to make it look like you're reading it too much, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Do you give any kind of training in that aspect of it?
Yeah, well, like the first thing I'd say for anyone that does feel nervous is that stage of writing a good speech and knowing that you've got a good one to deliver. That's half the battle. But then, there is lots of delivery confidence tricks. And, it is, some of the time it is like faking it till you make it, and standing up and smiling is just, that is something when I do delivery coaching, people often forget to smile.
Oh, yeah, because you can hear a smile. You can actually hear a smile.
Yeah, exactly. And I always sort of say, like, when you're standing in front of a crowd, you kind of got to imagine you're a primary school teacher, in front of a group of 5-year-olds telling a story. So you've got to lose all your pretensions and just, get down and dirty, eyes rolling, use your arms, use your body, and just try and get story across as opposed to worrying about yourself so much.
I mean,
that's another
you
thing
not
we
only do weddings, obviously, as well. You do speeches for other occasions, I imagine, too. What's the more unusual kind of things that you would do, apart from Conservative Party conferences? What's the? Because I can tell you now, they need a few speech lessons. What would? What's the more unusual ones you do?
Well, it can be everything from, we do eulogies, which are always an honour to work on, to 80th birthday speeches, to TED Talks, where we end up learning loads of interesting stuff as well. But I'd say the ones that I do enjoy most isn't the business ones. It is much more those personal sort of wedding speeches and things where you get a real insight into people. So that's what we concentrate on.
By the way, when you're doing a eulogy, just a little bit of a tip here, if you're ever doing a eulogy, do you add humour into a eulogy, or is that disrespectful? Now, I've been at, some funerals that have been hell. They've been great, hilariously funny.
Yeah.
But I've also been at some that are quite morbid. Mind you, it is a funeral. Yeah. It's meant to be reasonably morbid. I understand that. But I mean, should you add a bit of humour into it about the the person who passed away?
I mean, if you can, obviously it depends on the circumstances, but generally, if it's someone who has led a life, you'd hope that you can add that sense of joy into the speech and, their sense of humour and what they brought and those happy times. So, that's definitely our starting point with any eulogy, is bringing that sense of joy into it as well, and really reflecting a bit of the person's sense of humour, hopefully too. Yeah,
but read the room, I suppose, is the most important thing, isn't it? Read the room.
Exactly.
Like
so,
if it's a tragedy and it's somebody who died quite young or something like that, don't start telling jokes. You know what I mean? It's not going to go down well.
Exactly. So, I mean, with any of the speeches that we do, I mean, it is so individual. We speak to loads of dads, for example, and sometimes they're saying they're not that keen on the groom, or there's two sort of families that don't particularly get on, and there's lots of politics to get involved in. So, it's always interesting in terms of what you learn about love and about families and about relationships, and then trying to negotiate that and create a sort of entertaining speech off the back of anything that keeps everyone happy. So,
I mean, the book,
it can be challenging. But
the book is a must for people, of course, because, look, there's loads of speeches to be made. We all know that. But what do they do? They hold on, I have to tap my glass. Hang on. That's it. I used when I was the best man. When I was the best man at the wedding, I hated it because people do it all the way through the whole night just to really annoy you. And I go, it's coming soon. The speech is coming soon. Anyway, the point I was making, sorry, I spilled my water there while I was talking. Anyway, the book is called The Modern Couple's Guide to Wedding Speeches. And I suppose it's a must, isn't it, really? Because you don't try and do this on your own. You do need help, don't you?
Yeah, well, I just think, as I say, like everyone that does a wedding speech these days dives onto the internet, and it's so easy to get lost with bad advice. So I think this book is really good in that it kind of gets rid of all the nonsense, gets rid of all the fear of all these formalities and etiquette that you think you need to pay attention to, but you really don't. And it just gives you sort of our team's tips on how you can easily hunt down humour and how you can be romantic without sounding cliched and keeping it real, and how to hunt down your best stories and things. And I think another thing, obviously, that why the book was needed is that there's more women
I was coming to that.
giving speeches.
I was coming to this. So that's not really very traditional, but it's becoming more common now, where women are making the speeches. I don't know why it was never traditional for the women to say very much. She kind of just sat there and looked pretty, which wasn't really a nice thing, to be honest with you. So now it's becoming more common for you. So, by the way, why did that happen? Why did we get to a point where women weren't really saying anything at weddings?
Well, gosh, I mean, it's just the sort of sexist traditions. But what I find the strangest thing is still go to wedding exhibitions or wedding shows, and some brides to be are still saying to me, "Can a bride give a speech?" And I'm going,
yeah, why not?
Of
Like,
course you can. And I think there's still there is reluctance in some women, especially when many feel like they've done the hard labour of most of the organisation of the wedding, and by the time the day comes, they just want to sit back and drink the champers and have compliments thrown at them. But I'd always say, like, it's a missed opportunity. Like, it's one of the parts of your wedding where you can really add personality to the day, and you can really pay tribute not just to your partner, but to your parents and your friends, and you can make people laugh. And so, you know, I gave a bride speech and I really enjoyed it because it was that chance of the day where I got to connect with people.
Yeah.
And so I'd always encourage brides to at least think about it. So, you know, you don't have to do anything on your wedding day, but I'd say it's a missed opportunity.
Do you have any disaster stories that you could tell us?
Disaster
stories?
What's
What's the worst, the worst story that you have?
Well, yeah. I mean, it would just be when families don't like each other.
There's a row at the top table.
Navigate against that.
Yeah.
Or hopefully by the time that we are working with them, it's all going to be okay. But like, I do remember seeing quite a few disaster stories. There was one where it was a trio of best men, and they had to get escorted off the mic by the mother of the bride after their performance got a bit too rowdy. And I'd say that is, like, when it's joint speeches, it does get a bit more risky, especially like three best men. It's that you're kind of laying yourself up for a fall there if you've invited three onto the mic. So, you know, it's just about, sometimes it's not the funniest best man you need, it's the one who's going to put on the sort of the most homework into it.
Yeah,
and
the one that's going to make the effort.
drunk.
Yeah, I think that's why they picked me for best man years ago, because he's a talk show host. He'll be grand at the speech. They were so wrong. But I mean, absolutely so wrong. But here's the other thing. I mean, the other advice would be don't drink too much before the speech, because that could be a disaster.
Yeah.
One of the funniest sketches here in Ireland was by a comedian, a very famous comedian in Ireland who since passed away recently. And his name is Brendan Grace. And his sketch, it's called, if you get a chance, you should watch it, by the way. It'll be on YouTube. It's called The Father of the Bride. And by Brendan Grace is his name. And it's a hilarious sketch. And I think we might actually play it if we get time before we finish today. And it's about a drunk father making a speech. Ooh. And it's just the funniest thing. So the advice is, tip, don't drink before the speech. Or I'd say limit the amount of alcohol you have.
Yes, yeah. I mean, being a Scot myself, I'm a fan of a few glasses, but I'd say don't have any more than, 2 glasses of bubbles before you get up there. Because, I mean, there's science behind it and everything. Your performance definitely is rated lower, even after you've had sort of 1 glass of something. And the idea of Dutch courage is a fallacy. It's, you actually have more stress hormones. So yeah, if you can avoid it, do until the speeches are done. Just try and get the newlyweds to schedule those speeches before the meal.
Well, look, if anyone wants some advice, you're looking for help with your speeches, not just for weddings, but it is mainly weddings that people look for help with. But if it's after dinner speeches, if it's political speeches, by the way, our Taoiseach Leo Varadkar, you might need a little bit of help. Heidi's the woman, because recently your speeches haven't been great, I have to be honest with you. And if anybody wants any help at all, where's the best place to get in touch with you, by the way?
I'm slagging off everything online, but actually it's Speechy.com, SPEECHY.
Speechy.com. All right. If you want to go to Speechy.com, you can get all the information there. And it makes it so easy because there's templates and all obviously you have to decide what sort of template you want and give some information so they can be customised and personalised to your special day, as they say. Heidi, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. I appreciate
you
coming on.
too. I hope you can be best man again.
Oh no, please! I swear. If I see a wedding invitation coming in the door, it's like watching a summons falling into the letterbox. I hate it. Thank you, Heidi.
All right.
See you.
Thank
Bye.
you very much.
There you go,
Bye.
Heidi Ellert McDermott. With a name like McDermott, actually, she must be either Scottish or Irish.
Now, real people, real opinions. Nighttime Talk with Niall Boylan.
Ireland's classic hits radio.